Tonight, we are going to walk a different Earth. One that might have been. One where the footsteps that echo through the forest don't belong to us, and the shapes moving in the mist are not shadows cast by anything we have ever known. This is a journey into a world that never happened, but could have, if a single day in the history of the planet had unfolded just a little differently. If you have been here before, I am glad you found your way back. If you are new, take a moment to settle in. And if this feels like a place you want to return to, please subscribe. We are about to begin a very long, quiet walk together. So let your breath slow down. Let the weight of the day slip away. We are beginning. 66 million years ago, the Earth was a very different place. The continents sat closer together. The air was thicker, richer in oxygen, and the climate was warm from pole to pole, with no permanent ice caps at all. In this steamy green world, dinosaurs dominated every corner of the land. They had been doing so for an incomprehensible stretch of time, over 160 million years. To put that in perspective, the distance between us and the last Tyrannosaurus rex is closer in time than the T-Rex was to the first dinosaurs that ever walked. This was a mature world, a stable world, a world that had settled into its own rhythms under the rule of animals that were anything but primitive. They were diverse, highly adapted, and deeply embedded in ecosystems that pulsed with life. And then, in a single day, it ended. A rock from space, roughly 10 to 15 kilometers wide, traveling at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour, slammed into the shallow sea near what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact released energy equivalent to billions of atomic bombs. In an instant, the Earth became a place of fire and darkness. The blast wave radiated outward, flattening everything for thousands of kilometers. The heat pulse scorched the sky, and material ejected from the crater re-entered the atmosphere as a global rain of incandescent debris, setting forests alight on a planetary scale. Within hours, a thick blanket of dust and soot began to shroud the Earth, blotting out the sun. Photosynthesis collapsed, the planet went cold, and it went silent. The dinosaurs, the great rulers of the Mesozoic, perished. Not all of them, of course. A single branch of the dinosaur family tree, the birds, managed to survive. But the iconic giants, the horned ceratopsians, the duck-billed hadrosaurs, the armored ankylosaurs, the long-necked sauropods, and the fearsome tyrannosaurs, all of them vanished. Their world ended, and in the aftermath, a new world began. Small, furry mammals which had scurried in the shadows of the dinosaurs for millions of years inherited the Earth. They diversified, grew in size, and eventually gave rise to a species that would one day look back at the fossilized bones and wonder what had happened. That species is us. We owe our entire existence to that one bad day. But what if that day had never come? What if the asteroid missed? What if that chunk of ancient rock, tugged loose from its orbit in the asteroid belt by some long-forgotten gravitational nudge, had simply sailed harmlessly past our planet? What if the dinosaurs had been given the chance to continue their reign, uninterrupted, into the future? This is the question that leads us down a quiet path into a world that exists only in the imagination, guided by the known laws of biology, geology, and climate. It is a world that is both deeply alien and hauntingly familiar. Let us step into it now and see what might have been. Our story begins in the late Cretaceous, roughly 66 million years ago, just before the moment of impact that never happens. The Earth is a warm, wet world. Sea levels are exceptionally high, hundreds of meters higher than they are today. Vast, shallow inland seas split continents apart. North America is bisected by the Western Interior Seaway, a warm, shallow body of water that stretches from the Arctic Ocean all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, dividing the continent into two great land masses, Laramidia to the west and Appalachia to the east. To the south, South America is an island continent, separated from North America by a seaway. Africa is also an island, separated from Eurasia by the ancient Tethys Ocean. India is a massive, isolated landmass, racing northward toward its eventual collision with Asia. Australia is still connected to Antarctica, and together they form a temperate forested landmass near the South Pole. The vegetation is lush and productive. Flowering plants which had burst onto the evolutionary scene earlier in the Cretaceous have transformed the landscape. Forests are no longer dominated solely by conifers, ferns, and cycads, though those ancient plants are still abundant. Instead, broad-leaved trees, magnolias, laurels, plane trees, and early members of the oak and maple families spread across the continents. Grasses have not yet evolved to form vast open plains, so the ground cover is largely ferns, low shrubs, and herbaceous flowering plants. The world is a patchwork of dense forests, fern prairies, swamps, and river systems teeming with life. In this world, the dinosaurs are at their absolute peak of diversity. After over 160 million years of evolution, they have filled nearly every terrestrial ecological niche. In the western half of North America, Laramidia, a rich fauna of large dinosaurs, thrives. Along the coastal plains and river valleys, herds of ceratopsians, horned dinosaurs like Triceratops, move through the forest edges and open clearings. Their enormous frilled skulls, some adorned with horns, spikes, and elaborate patterns, are not just weapons against predators but also display structures for communication within the herd. They live in complex social groups, migrating seasonally along the ancient river systems. Their movements are slow and deliberate, their beaks cropping the vegetation, their heavy footfalls pressing deep into the soft mud of the floodplains. Sharing the landscape with them are the duck-billed hadrosaurs, perhaps the most successful large herbivores of the late Cretaceous. These animals are social, highly vocal, and come in a bewildering variety of species. Some bear elaborate hollow crests on their heads, elongated tubes and chambers connected to their nasal passages. Air pushed through these crests produces deep, resonant calls that carry for miles across the misty lowlands, a constant low-frequency soundtrack to the world. These sounds are not roars in the mammalian sense, but something more like the deep honking of gigantic geese, or the low rumbling of distant thunder. The hadrosaurs move in immense herds, sometimes numbering in the thousands, their shuffling passage creating well-worn trails through the forests. They walk on all fours most of the time, but can rear up on their hind legs to run or to reach higher branches. Their dental batteries are extraordinary, composed of hundreds of tightly packed teeth that form a continuous grinding surface, allowing them to process the toughest plant material. In the shadows of these great herds, smaller dinosaurs flit about. Thescelosaurus, a sheep-sized bipedal herbivore with a long tail and quick legs, forages on the forest floor, its wide eyes constantly scanning for danger. Small, feathered theropods, relatives of the great predators, dart through the undergrowth, snapping up insects and small vertebrates. They are covered in simple hair-like protofeathers, insulation for their small, active bodies. Some are no larger than a chicken, their movements quick and bird-like, their heads tilting sharply as they watch the world with intelligent, glittering eyes, and watching everything from the shadows of the forest edge. The predator, Tyrannosaurus rex, is the apex predator of this ecosystem, an animal of almost impossible power. An adult T-Rex weighs over 8 tons, stands nearly 4 meters tall at the hip, and stretches over 12 meters from its bone-crushing jaws to the tip of its heavy tail. Its senses are extraordinary. Its eyes, set forward for binocular vision, are larger than grapefruits, granting it excellent depth perception. Its sense of smell is among the keenest that has ever existed in the animal kingdom, capable of detecting the scent of a carcass from many kilometers away. It does not run at the speeds depicted in fiction. Its bulk is too great, but it can walk with a long, ground-covering stride, its massive thighs powering it forward in a relentless, efficient pursuit. It lives a life of calculated violence, a mixture of active hunting and opportunistic scavenging. When it brings down a triceratops, the impact is seismic. The crash of its jaws, capable of exerting over 5 metric tons of bite force, shatters bone and armor alike. Its presence shapes the behavior of every other animal in the landscape. In the southern continents, the fauna is radically different. South America is dominated by the abelosaurids, a group of theropod predators with short, bulldog-like skulls, and often absurdly reduced arms. Carnotaurus is perhaps the most iconic, a sleek, muscular predator with 2 prominent horns jutting from above its eyes. Its skin is covered in a mosaic of pebbly scales and larger conical scutes, giving it a rugged, almost armored appearance. It is built for speed, more so than the tyrannosaurs of the north. Its long, powerful legs and deep, narrow body suggest it pursues its prey across the open fern prairies and river plains, relying on bursts of acceleration and agility. The herbivores it hunts are the titanosaurs, the last great dinosaurs, the long-necked sauropods. These animals are of a scale almost beyond imagination. Saltosaurus, a heavily armored titanosaur, wallows in the shallow lakes and rivers, its back covered in bony plates and spikes, a formidable defense against the abelosaurids. But it is the truly giant titanosaurs, animals like Argentinosaurus, that represent the pinnacle of terrestrial gigantism. These animals can reach lengths of over 35 meters and weigh upwards of 70 tons. They move through the landscape like living mountains, their pillar-like legs carrying them with a slow, deliberate majesty. Their impossibly long necks allow them to sweep vast arcs of vegetation without moving their bodies, conserving precious energy. The ground trembles with their passage, and their deep infrasonic calls, felt more than heard, travel through the earth itself. A fundamental bass note in the symphony of the Mesozoic. Africa, too, is a world unto itself. Here, Carcharodontosaurus, a giant theropod of a completely different lineage from the tyrannosaurs, still holds dominion in some regions, a relic of an earlier age. It is a predator of blade-like teeth, designed for slicing flesh rather than crushing bone. It hunts the enormous paralititan sauropods that inhabit the coastal mangrove swamps and river deltas. The skies above all these continents are filled with creatures. Pterosaurs, though not dinosaurs themselves, are the undisputed rulers of the air. At the end of the Cretaceous, the skies are dominated by the azhdarchids, giant pterosaurs that stand as tall as giraffes when on the ground. Quetzalcoatlus northropy, with a wingspan of over 10 meters, is the largest flying animal that has ever lived. It launches itself from the ground with a powerful vault of its muscular forelimbs, and once aloft, soars on thermal currents across vast distances, its long, stiff neck and crested head scanning the ground below for small dinosaurs and other prey. The sight of a flock of Quetzalcoatlus rising on a late afternoon thermal, their wings catching the golden light, is one of the great spectacles of this age. This was the world on the last day of the Cretaceous, a world of staggering diversity, of complex ecosystems that had been evolving and adapting for tens of millions of years. It was a world that, in geological terms, was functioning perfectly. There was no slow decline, no inevitable senescence. The dinosaurs were not lumbering toward extinction. They were vibrant, dynamic, and deeply embedded in the fabric of their environment. The asteroid was not a culmination of anything. It was an interruption. A sudden, violent, and catastrophic interruption. In our story, it simply does not happen. The asteroid passes the Earth at a safe distance, a brilliant shooting star in the Cretaceous sky, perhaps observed by a curious troop of small feathered dinosaurs, their heads tilted upward at the brief, silent streak of light. And then, nothing. The world continues on its course. The sun rises again on the Cretaceous, and it will continue to rise for millions and millions of years to come. The first thing to understand about the world that follows is that it is not static. The Earth is a dynamic planet, and the great engine of plate tectonics continues to grind away. The continents do not stay in their Cretaceous positions. They continue their slow, inexorable drift. This has profound implications for the climate and for the evolution of life. The first major event in our imaginary timeline is the gradual recession of the great inland seas. As the continents shift and sea levels slowly fall, the western interior seaway that divided North America begins to shrink. It withdraws, leaving behind vast, flat, swampy plains. The two dinosaur faunas of Laramidia and Appalachia, long separated, begin to mix. This is a period of ecological upheaval, as species that evolved in isolation now compete directly. Some lineages thrive, others fade. The world resorts itself. The next great geological event is the collision of India with Asia. In our timeline, this collision, which began around 50 million years ago, threw up the Himalayan mountain range and the Tibetan plateau, profoundly altering global climate patterns. In our dinosaur world, this collision still happens. The tectonic forces that drove it are entirely independent of what lives on the surface. India, having rafted across the Tethys Ocean for millions of years, carrying its own unique cargo of dinosaur species, slams into the underbelly of Asia. The land crumples. The Himalayas rise, slowly at first, then with a grinding, inexorable majesty. This creates a new barrier to air circulation, altering rainfall patterns across the entire northern hemisphere. The collision also creates a land bridge, allowing the dinosaurs of Asia to migrate south into India, and the dinosaurs of Asia to spread north into the heart of Asia. This mixing of faunas sparks another round of evolutionary innovation and competition. South America and North America, long separated, also begin to draw closer. Eventually, a chain of volcanic islands begins to rise between them, and finally, a solid land bridge forms. The Great American Interchange. In our timeline, this event, which occurred about 3 million years ago, allowed ground sloths, glyptodonts, and terror birds to move north, and saber-toothed cats, bears, and mammoths to move south. In our dinosaur world, the interchange is a clash of dinosaur dynasties. The tyrannosaurs of the north, having evolved into new forms, meet the abelisaurids of the south. The horned ceratopsians encounter the bizarre armored titanosaurs. The consequences of this collision are as dramatic as they are unpredictable. Some groups expand their ranges dramatically as betic, others are driven to extinction in a biological drama that plays out over millions of years. Climate itself continues to change. Over the course of the tens of millions of years following the late Cretaceous, the Earth undergoes a long, gradual cooling trend. This is driven by the continued fragmentation of the continents, changes in ocean circulation, and the slow drawdown of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The warm, equable world of the Cretaceous, with its palm trees near the poles and crocodiles in the high Arctic, begins to give way to a more seasonal world. The poles get colder. Ice caps begin to form, first on the high mountains of Antarctica, and then spreading gradually across the continent itself. The first permanent ice sheets in Antarctica begin to appear around 34 million years ago, in the Oligocene epoch of our timeline. In our dinosaur world, this cooling trend presents a massive evolutionary challenge for the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs, being largely mesothermic, relying on a combination of internal metabolic heat and external environmental warmth, must adapt to the cooling world. This is perhaps the single greatest test they face in the entire 66 million years of our imaginary journey. The drivers of the cooling are long-term and powerful. The rise of the Himalayas exposes vast amounts of fresh rock to weathering. Rainwater, slightly acidic from dissolved carbon dioxide, reacts with the rock, pulling CO2 out of the atmosphere and sequestering it in carbonate minerals. This process, over millions of years, reduces the greenhouse effect. Meanwhile, the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, a cold ocean current that isolates Antarctica, begins to form as the continents of South America and Australia finally separate from the southernmost continent. This current acts as a thermal barrier, preventing warm tropical waters from reaching the South Pole. Antarctica freezes. The first dinosaurs to feel the bite of the cold are those living at high latitudes. But dinosaurs are not strangers to polar conditions. Even in the Cretaceous, dinosaurs lived in regions that experienced months of darkness and freezing temperatures. Fossil evidence from Alaska and southern Australia shows that some dinosaurs were year-round residents of these high-latitude environments. They coped with the cold and the dark through a variety of adaptations. Some may have migrated, following the sun with the seasons in great, slow-moving caravans. Others may have evolved insulation. We know that many dinosaur groups, particularly the theropods, were feathered. In the cooling world, feathering becomes more prevalent, more complex, and more sophisticated. Simple hair-like proto-feathers evolve into complex pinnaceous feathers, the kind that cover birds today. These feathers are not just for display or for brooding eggs. They become a vital part of thermoregulation, trapping a layer of warm air close to the body. The smaller dinosaurs, the dromaeosaurs and troodontids, and the diverse herbivorous thescelosaurs, become heavily feathered. Picture a dromaeosaur, the classic raptor of the Cretaceous, but now covered in a thick, soft plumage of barred browns, whites, and greys. Its long tail is a balancing fan of feathers. Its arms, which bear long, pinnaceous feathers, are still used for grasping and for display, but they also serve as excellent insulators when wrapped around the body. These animals are intelligent, social, and highly adaptable. They hunt in packs through the snow, their feathered feet providing insulation and traction on the frozen ground. Their breath plumes in the cold, crisp air. Their eyes, large and forward-facing, are adapted to low light conditions, for the polar winter is long and dark. But what of the giants? A Tyrannosaurus rex, even one covered in a sparse coat of insulating feathers, is simply too large to survive prolonged exposure to deep cold in an open landscape. The physics of heat loss are cruel to large animals. A high surface area to volume ratio helps small animals stay cool, but for a giant, heat retention is the challenge. An 8-ton tyrannosaur generates an enormous amount of metabolic heat, and it loses that heat very slowly. While this is an advantage in a cooling world, preventing it from freezing to death, it also makes it very difficult to survive in a landscape of deep snow and frozen rivers. The very mass that protects it from the cold also traps it. It cannot burrow. It cannot easily find shelter. It is bound to the open landscape. The solution, from an evolutionary perspective, is movement, migration. The great polar tyrannosaurs become long-distance travelers. They spend the summers in the high latitudes, where the long days fuel a burst of plant growth, which in turn supports vast herds of herbivorous dinosaurs. Here, the tyrannosaurs hunt and build up fat reserves. As the days shorten and the first snows fall, they begin a slow, stately migration southward, following the herds of hadrosaurs and ceratopsians that also flee the winter. These seasonal migrations become one of the great natural spectacles of the dinosaur world. Imagine a scene from the late Pliocene, about 3 million years ago. The northern hemisphere is locked in an ice age. Glaciers have advanced south from the Arctic, covering much of northern Canada and Eurasia. The sea levels have dropped, exposing vast plains of steppe and tundra. Across this cold, windy landscape, a herd of woolly hadrosaurs, their bodies covered in thick, shaggy, feather-like filaments, their heads bearing crests that have shrunk and simplified over millions of years to become more efficient heat exchangers, move south. They number in the tens of thousands. Their deep, rumbling calls roll across the plains. They are flanked, at a respectful distance, by the feathered tyrannosaurs, the northern descendants of T-Rex. These predators are not the scaly giants of the Cretaceous. They are fully feathered, their coats are dense, shaggy white and grey, giving them a hulking, almost mammalian silhouette. Their eyes are protected from the wind by a shield of feathery scales. Their jaws are still immense, their bite still devastating, but they move with a patient, energy-conserving stride, waiting for a young, weak or old member of the herd to fall behind. The relationship is ancient. a dance that has been evolving for tens of millions of years. Further south, in the temperate zones, the dinosaurs are different. The tropics and subtropics of the Miocene and Pliocene epochs, the epochs that span from about 23 million years ago to about 2.5 million years ago in our timeline, are a realm of dense, humid forests and extensive savannas. Grasses have now evolved and begun to spread, creating open habitats that are new to the dinosaur world. This is a critical moment in our story because the spread of grasslands is a major planetary event driven by the same cooling and drying trends that are affecting the whole world. Grasses are tough, abrasive plants, full of silica phytoliths that wear down teeth. Animals that eat grasses must have continuously growing teeth, or highly efficient dental batteries that can withstand the constant abrasion. In our timeline, the spread of grasslands drove the evolution of grazing mammals, horses, antelopes, elephants, with their high-crowned, ever-growing teeth. In our dinosaur world, the hadrosaurs are pre-adapted for this challenge. Their remarkable dental batteries, with hundreds of replaceable teeth, are already among the most efficient grinding mechanisms in the history of life. They simply adapt them further. The duck-billed dinosaurs of the grasslands become the dominant grazers. Their skulls become deeper to accommodate even larger dental batteries. Their skulls become deeper to accommodate even larger dental batteries. Their muzzles broaden. They become the bison, the wildebeest, the antelope of the dinosaur world. They diversify into a stunning array of forms, some small and quick, bounding through the grass on long, slender legs, others huge and ponderous, moving in immense wandering herds. The sound of 1,000,000 hadrosaurs grazing, their massive dental batteries grinding silica-rich grass to a pulp, is a low, constant hiss that carries for miles. The sound of a world being eaten. The ceratopsians also adapt. Their shearing beaks and slicing dental batteries allow them to process tough vegetation, but they tend to occupy a different niche. They become the browsers and the mixed feeders, using their beaks to crop shrubs, trees, and the tougher, woody plants that invade the grasslands. Their horns and frills evolve into an ever more elaborate array of display structures. Some develop massive forward-curving horns for jousting with rivals. Others evolve intricate, fenestrated frills covered in skin that can flush with bright colors, creating a living signaling system that is constantly in use for communication within the herd. In the deep twilight of the savanna, a herd of grazing ceratopsians is a shifting mosaic of color and pattern, a silent conversation conducted in the language of living bone and skin. The predators also evolve to match the new landscapes. The spread of open grasslands favors speed and endurance. The giant, ambush-hunting tyrannosaurs of the deep forests are joined by a new lineage of pursuit predators. These are the descendants of the smaller theropods, the dromaeosaurs and the troodontids, which have, over tens of millions of years, grown in size and specialized for running. They are the cheetahs and wolves of this world. Their legs are long and slender. Their tails are stiffened rods that act as dynamic stabilizers. Their bodies are covered in a smooth, aerodynamic layer of feathers. They hunt in highly coordinated packs, using complex communication, a mix of chirps, whistles, and deep resonant calls, to coordinate their attacks on the vast herds of grazing hadrosaurs. A hunt is a ballet of speed and strategy. The pack separates, some members driving the herd, others flanking, still others waiting in ambush. The target is isolated, pursued with relentless ground-eating strides, and brought down with precisely placed bites from toothy jaws, the killing claw on the foot. Once a universal feature of this lineage has been repurposed for gripping and holding rather than slashing. The chase is over quickly. The herd moves on, the grass swaying back into place. The pack settles down to feed, their social bonds reaffirmed through a series of quiet, bird-like vocalizations. In the forests, life continues in forms that are closer to their Cretaceous ancestors, but refined. The tropical forests of Africa and South America, which have persisted through the global cooling, are refugia for ancient lineages. Here, the giant titanosaurs still browse among the towering trees, their immense bodies moving through the dappled light like ships in a green sea. Their necks have continued to elongate, reaching ever higher into the canopy. Some species have evolved a bizarre, almost vertical posture, their necks lifting straight up from their shoulders, allowing them to feed on the foliage of the tallest trees without moving their feet. They are the giraffes of the dinosaur world, but on a scale that dwarfs any mammal. A bull titanosaur, standing beneath a giant fig tree, its head 40 meters above the ground, is a sight that defies easy comprehension. It simply is a fact of the world, a mountain with an appetite. The forest predators of this world are a different lineage from the pursuit hunters of the plains. They are the descendants of the abelisaurids and the megalosaurs, heavy-bodied, powerful animals with strong skulls and jaws designed for gripping and crushing. They are ambush hunters, lurking in the dense undergrowth, their skin patterned with disruptive blotches and stripes of browns, greens, and blacks. They wait, motionless, for hours, their metabolism slow and patient, until a young titanosaur wanders too close. The lunge is explosive, the jaws clamp down on the leg, the neck, the flank. The teeth, though not as specialized for crushing bone as the tyrannosaurs, are still capable of inflicting horrific wounds. The prey is dragged down, its death a slow, ponderous collapse, the ground shaking, the forest echoing with the distress calls of the victim and the rustling of the rest of the herd retreating. This is a world of quiet terror, of sudden violence punctuating long periods of green, humid stillness. The dinosaurs of the late Pliocene, roughly 3 million years ago, have now been evolving, uninterrupted, for over 60 million years. They are not static. They have responded to changing climates, shifting continents, and the evolution of new plant communities. They have spread into every available niche. They have become grazers, browsers, pursuit hunters, ambush predators, scavengers, ambush predators, scavengers, insectivores, seed dispersers. They have diversified into forms that are as varied as the mammals of our own timeline. Some have become small, no larger than a rat, living a cryptic existence in the undergrowth, their feathered bodies scurrying through leaf litter, snapping up insects. Others have taken to the trees, their grasping hands and feet, their balancing tails, and their sharp stereoscopic vision allowing them to navigate the three-dimensional world of the canopy with incredible agility. These arboreal dinosaurs are a fascinating branch of the family tree. Imagine a small feathered theropod, its arms and legs adapted for brachiation, swinging acrobatically from branch to branch in pursuit of fruits and insects. Its plumage is a riot of color, greens and reds and blues, a signal to others of its kind in the dappled, confusing light of the forest canopy. Its calls are complex, melodious, a far cry from the guttural bellows of its distant ancestors. In the rivers and lakes, the dinosaur world has also produced semi-aquatic forms. The spinosaurs, which in the Cretaceous were already fish-eaters with their long crocodile-like snouts and conical teeth, have radiated into a variety of aquatic niches. Some have become massive, bear-like waders, stalking the shallows on powerful hind legs, sweeping their long snouts through the water to snap up fish. Others have become more fully aquatic, their limbs shortened, their tails deepened into sculling organs, their bodies streamlined for swimming. They share the waterways with enormous turtles, crocodilians, and a diverse array of fish, including some that have continued to grow to enormous sizes. The waterways are dangerous places, the surface occasionally broken by the back of a giant aquatic spinosaur, the water streaming from its pebbly scales, its eyes watching the banks with cold reptilian calculation. But of all the evolutionary paths the dinosaurs have taken in this imaginary world, one stands out above all others: the evolution of intelligence. In our timeline, a lineage of mammals, the primates, evolved ever larger brains, culminating in a species capable of abstract thought, language, and complex tool use. In the dinosaur world, the most intelligent animals, from the very beginning, have been the theropods, particularly the troodontids. Troodontids in the Cretaceous had the largest brain-to-body ratio of any dinosaur, comparable to some modern birds. Their eyes were huge, their senses acute, and their behavior was likely complex. Over 60 million years, in a world without the asteroid, this trend continues. One lineage of troodontids, living in a complex social environment and facing intense selective pressure for problem-solving ability, begins a steady, incremental increase in brain size. The driver could be the need to navigate a complex social hierarchy, to coordinate hunting strategies, or to adapt to a changing climate that demands flexible, innovative behavior. The cause is less important than the result. By the late Pliocene, 3 million years ago, there exists, in the forests and savannas of Africa, a dinosaur that is unlike any other. It stands about 1.5 meters tall. It is fully feathered, with a short, almost comical tail that sticks out behind it for balance, but is rarely dragged on the ground. Its body is covered in a soft, dappled brown and olive plumage, which on the head becomes a complex, expressive crest that can be raised, lowered, and fanned out to signal mood and intent. Its hands are unlike those of any other dinosaur. The 3 fingers are long, slender, and highly articulated. The thumb is partially opposable. These hands are not wings, not grasping hooks, but delicate instruments capable of fine manipulation. The eyes, set forward in a face that has become shorter and more dome-shaped, are huge and expressive. The sclera white, making the direction of gaze immediately obvious to others. This is a crucial development for social communication. This dinosaur walks through the forest in a troop of perhaps 40 or 50 individuals. They're not hunters. Their teeth have become smaller, their diet omnivorous, consisting of fruits, nuts, tubers, insects, and occasionally small vertebrates. They have lost the large, killing claw on the foot, which is now a simple, blunt nail. Their feet are flat, plantigrade, good for walking and standing. But their hands are never still. They use simple tools, pebbles to crack open hard-shelled nuts, twigs stripped of leaves to fish for termites in their towering clay mounds, sharp-edged flakes of stone, struck from larger cobbles, to cut through the tough skin of a scavenged carcass. The manufacture of these stone tools is not yet sophisticated, but it is deliberate. One individual selects a smooth, round cobble of quartzite from a stream bed. It examines it, turning it over in its hands, its head cocked. Then, with a precise swinging blow, it strikes the cobble against a larger, stationary rock. A flake detaches. The individual picks it up, tests the edge with the pad of its thumb, its face expressionless but its eyes focused. It is thinking. It is planning. This is not instinct. This is culture. The troop communicates constantly. Their vocal repertoire is vast, a complex language of clicks, whistles, trills, and low, guttural murmurs. The sounds are not words in the human sense, but they convey precise information. A particular trill means a specific predator has been spotted. A series of clicks indicates the location of a fruiting tree. A low, humming murmur is a reassurance, a social bond. They are intensely social animals, and their society is structured. There are dominant individuals, coalitions of males, tight-knit family groups of females and their young. Their politics are intricate. Alliances are formed, tested, and broken. Status is negotiated through displays, through the manipulation of the feathered crest, through the exchange of gifts, a particularly juicy grub, a comfortable grooming session. They groom each other constantly, their long, delicate fingers parting feathers, removing parasites, soothing and bonding. This is the fabric of their lives. At night, the troop assembles in a favored grove of trees. They do not sleep on the ground. Predators are too numerous. Instead, they climb, using their grasping hands and feet into the branches. There, they construct sleeping platforms. They weave branches together, lining them with soft ferns and mosses. This is not nest building in the simple, instinctive sense. The construction is varied, adapted to the specific shape of the tree, and shows signs of learned behavior. The young watch the adults and clumsily imitate them, their early attempts collapsing in a tumble of leaves and twigs. The adults, patient, will sometimes take the twigs from the young and reeve them correctly, making a soft clucking sound in their throats. As the sun sets, the troop settles down. The sky is a deep, burning orange, fading to violet, then to a darkness studded with unfamiliar constellations. The only sounds are the soft, breathy chirps of the dinosaurs settling down to sleep, the distant rumble of a titanosaur herd on the move, and the occasional, chilling roar of a large predator in the deep distance. These are not people. They are not us. They do not look like us, and their minds, while brilliant, are profoundly alien. Their intelligence is an avian intelligence, quick, visual, social, and intensely present. They do not build cities. They do not write. But they do remember. They pass down knowledge from generation to generation. A particular stone tool technique, a memory of a waterhole that lasted through a 10-year drought, a song that is sung only at the first rain of the wet season. This is a culture, a tradition, held not in books, but in the living minds of a continuous lineage that stretches back, unbroken, for over 160 million years, to the very dawn of the dinosaurs. The thread is unbroken. The asteroid never fell. The world is theirs. And now, as we watch this troop of intelligent, feathered dinosaurs settle into their sleeping platforms in the cooling African evening, the continent around them is in motion. The Great Rift Valley is tearing East Africa apart, a process that began millions of years ago and continues today. Volcanoes smolder on the horizon. Lakes, deep and alkaline, fill the rift floor. The climate continues its slow grinding shift toward a colder, more variable state. The ice ages, which in our timeline have been cycling for the last 2.5 million years, are deepening. The northern hemisphere is periodically buried under vast ice sheets, kilometers thick. The sea levels rise and fall by over 100 meters with each glacial cycle, exposing and flooding continental shelves in a slow rhythmic pulse. The dinosaurs of the north migrate great distances, their lives dictated by the ancient calendar of the ice. The intelligent dinosaurs of the tropics, insulated from the worst of the cold, continue their quiet, tool-using existence in the forests and grasslands. They begin to explore. They spread along the coasts, following the rich, predictable resources of the shoreline. Shellfish, washed up by the tides, become a staple. Their stone tools become more refined. They learn to use fire, carefully, tentatively at first, a brand plucked from a lightning strike blaze, nurtured, fed, and kept alive for generations. Fire brings warmth, light, and protection from predators. It fundamentally alters their relationship with the world. The circle of light from a campfire becomes the new center of their social life. The faces of the troop illuminated in flickering orange, their eyes reflecting the flames as they groom each other and communicate in their quiet, complex language. The dinosaurs of the sea, the last of the great marine reptiles, have been extinct for tens of millions of years by this point. Their fate was sealed by the same cooling trends that shaped the land. But the oceans are full of life. Whales and dolphins, which evolved from land mammals in our timeline, have never been given the chance to do so. In their place, a variety of other creatures occupy the large marine predator niches. Giant, predatory fish, some of them remnants of the Cretaceous, still stalk the depths. The oceans are also full of enormous sea turtles and birds. The last living dinosaurs of our timeline have diversified into a stunning array of aquatic and terrestrial forms. Some birds are flightless giants, walking the grasslands with heavy dinosaurian footsteps. Their beaks evolved into formidable weapons. They are a reminder, a living echo, of the common ancestry they share with the rulers of this world. As our journey through this imaginary timeline continues, the climate change that has been the backdrop for tens of millions of years intensifies. The ice ages are not a single uniform cold period. They are a series of pulses. Glacials, when the ice advances, and interglacials, when it retreats. These shifts are driven by subtle changes in the Earth's orbit and axis, the Milankovitch cycles, which are indifferent to the creatures living on the surface. The dinosaurs must adapt to these rapid shifts between cold and warm, wet and dry. This puts a premium on adaptability, on generalist species that can survive in a wide range of conditions. The large, specialized grazers, the woolly hadrosaurs of the far north, begin to struggle. Their numbers fluctuate wildly. Some species go extinct, replaced by others that are better able to track their shifting habitats. It is a world of constant change, a kaleidoscope of life turning over and over. In this volatile world, the intelligent troodontids are uniquely prepared. Their intelligence is their adaptation. They do not need to evolve thick coats of feathers to survive a colder phase, because they can control fire and they can fashion simple clothing from the skins of other animals, scraped clean with their stone tools and draped over their bodies for warmth. They do not need to evolve specialized teeth to eat a single type of plant, because they can process a wide variety of foods with their tools and their cooking fires. They are the ultimate generalists. Their populations, though small, are resilient. They spread in small, scattered groups out of Africa and into the southern parts of Eurasia. They follow the river systems, the coastlines, the edges of the great ice sheets. They are slow, patient colonizers, not a wave of conquest, but a gentle, persistent diffusion. Where they go, they observe. Their huge eyes, adapted for low light, allow them to see the world with incredible detail. They notice the tracks of the animals they hunt. They learn the habits of the predators they fear. They map the world not with ink on paper, but with a mental cartography that is passed down through generations by oral tradition, a living map of waterholes, fruiting trees, stone quarries, and dangerous places. Their language grows richer. The nouns, the verbs, the very structure of their communication become more complex. They give names to places and to each other. A sense of self, a concept of identity separate from the troop, begins to crystallize in their minds. They are not just part of the world. They are beginning to see themselves as distinct from it, as agents acting upon it. This is a profound cognitive leap, one that we, in our timeline, associate with the later stages of human evolution. Imagine a scene from the late Pleistocene, about 100,000 years ago. The ice sheets are at their maximum extent. The world is cold, dry, and windy. In a sheltered river valley in what would be southern France, a small band of intelligent dinosaurs has made a camp. The overhang of a limestone cliff provides shelter from the wind. A fire burns in a carefully constructed hearth, ringed with stones. The smoke curls up and stains the rock black. The group is small, perhaps 15 individuals. They are dressed in fitted clothing made of stitched hides, their dexterous hands having long ago mastered the art of the bone needle and the sinew thread. Their bodies, under the clothes, are still covered in soft feathers, but the clothing provides an extra layer of insulation against the brutal cold of the steppe. They are working. One is carefully pressure-flaking a flint core, detaching long, parallel-sided blades that will be further shaped into spear points and knives. The craft is precise, meticulous, the result of thousands of generations of accumulated knowledge. Another is using a burin, a sharp, chisel-like tool, to engrave a delicate pattern onto a mammoth ivory bracelet. The pattern is not random. It is a series of arcs and chevrons, a recurring motif that appears on objects across many campsites. It is a symbol, a shared cultural marker. The meaning is lost to us, but its existence is a window into a mind that is thinking abstractly, representing ideas with shapes. Outside the shelter, the snow is falling. The landscape is a monochrome of white and grey. A herd of woolly mammoths, their tusks curving extravagantly, their bodies wrapped in thick, shaggy coats of russet brown, plods through the deep snow in the valley bottom. These mammoths are a keystone species of the mammoth steppe, a vast cold grassland that circles the northern hemisphere. In this timeline, mammoths still exist, having evolved from their early proboscidean ancestors in the same way they did in our world, because the mammals, though overshadowed, have not been completely suppressed. They have diversified alongside the dinosaurs, filling the small and medium-sized herbivore and carnivore niches. Mammoths, woolly rhinos, giant deer, and bison share the landscape with the grazing hadrosaurs and the feathered tyrannosaurs. It is a hybrid ecosystem, a fusion of two evolutionary dynasties, the ancient and the modern. The intelligent dinosaurs watch the mammoths pass from the shelter of their cave. One of them, a young male, its crest feathers still downy and soft, makes a soft rumbling sound of wonder and excitement. An older female places a hand gently on its arm, a silent signal to be still, to observe. The world is full of power and danger, and respect for that power is the first lesson. The life of this small band is a constant negotiation with the predators that also call this valley home. The feathered tyrannosaur of the north, a species known as Tyrannosaurus, the polar tyrant, is a persistent threat. It is not an intelligent hunter in the way the troodontids are. It is a creature of pure, instinctive power. Its thick white plumage makes it nearly invisible against the snow. It moves with a ghostly silence. The troodontids fear it with a fear that is deep and primal, a fear that lives in their bones, in their cultural memory. They tell stories about it, the elders using exaggerated postures and deep, resonant calls to mimic the monster in the safety of the firelight, the younger ones watching with wide, dilated eyes. They have developed strategies. They post sentries when they are in the open, individuals who stand on high points, their keen eyes scanning the landscape for any sign of movement. They use fire as a weapon, carrying smouldering brands to ward off an attack. They have learned that a coordinated barrage of thrown stones, aimed at the predator's sensitive nose and eyes, can sometimes deter a curious young tyrannosaur. But they are also hunters. They are not just passive victims. They go out onto the steppe in small groups, armed with their flint-tipped spears and their deep knowledge of animal behavior. They hunt the giant deer. They set traps for the small, fast-running hadrosaurs. They cooperate with a precision that is almost telepathic, a shared understanding born of a lifetime of living and working together. A successful hunt is a time of celebration. The prey is butchered on the spot, the best cuts of meat carried back to the camp. The hunters return, their feathered crests raised high with pride, the rest of the group gathering around, touching them, making soft, happy chirps. There is a deep, satisfying sense of communal well-being, and in these quiet, communal moments, art flourishes. By the firelight, one of the females is painting. She has taken a piece of flat bark and coated it with a layer of charcoal mixed with animal fat. With a fine brush made from the feather of a titbird, she is painting a scene. It is the mammoth hunt from the previous week. The shapes are simple, elegant. The curve of the mammoth's back, the small angular figures of the hunters surrounding it. This is not just a record. It is a story. It is a way of sharing the excitement, the danger, the success of the hunt with those who were not there, and of preserving it for the young. The others gather around, watching in silence, their heads tilted, their eyes following the strokes of the brush. One of the young makes a questioning chirp, pointing a slender finger at a mark on the painting. The artist pauses, makes a short series of clicks, explaining what it is. A teaching moment. A transmission of knowledge. This is the seed of written language, the drive to make marks that carry meaning across time and space. The world is continuing to change around them. The last ice age is reaching its peak, but a great thaw is coming. The Milankovitch cycles are turning. The northern hemisphere is receiving more solar radiation in the summer. The great ice sheets are beginning to melt. The sea levels are rising. flooding the coastal plains where many of the troodontid bands have lived. The world is becoming warmer and wetter. The mammoth steppe is fragmenting, replaced by advancing forests. For the large, cold-adapted dinosaurs, the woolly hadrosaurs and the polar tyrannosaurs, this is a catastrophe. Their habitat is literally disappearing, shrinking away as the forests march north. But for the intelligent, adaptable troodontids, the warming world is an opportunity. As the ice recedes, vast new territories open up. The forests are full of food, full of new possibilities. Their populations begin to grow. Their technology advances. They spread across Eurasia, adapting to the new wooded landscape. They become more sophisticated. Their stone tools are smaller, more precise, microliths set into bone and antler handles to create composite tools. They invent the bow and arrow, a revolution in hunting technology, allowing them to kill from a much greater distance. They reach new lands. When the sea levels are low during a brief colder snap within the Great Thaw, a band of these dinosaurs walks across a land bridge from the far northeast of Eurasia into a new continent. It is a continent that has been isolated for a very long time. The dinosaurs of North America have been evolving on their own trajectory for millions of years, ever since the Great American Interchange connected and then resplit the continents. The troodontids find a world of bizarre creatures. Here, the dominant grazers are not hadrosaurs, but a lineage of heavily armored club-tailed ankylosaurs that have evolved into large open-country forms, their backs covered in a mosaic of massive flat plates. They move like living tanks across the plains. The predators are a new generation of tyrannosaurs, sleeker, faster, and covered in a dense, mottled coat of feathers. It is a world both familiar and utterly alien. The immigrant troodontids, with their sophisticated toolkits and their adaptable social structure, spread south through the continent, along the coast, through the great forests of the Pacific Northwest, and down into the vast central plains. They encounter other populations of their own kind. The troodontids, over hundreds of thousands of years, have not remained a single continuous species. Isolated populations have diverged, developing different physical characteristics, different tool-making traditions, different languages. When these different groups meet, the encounter is complex. Sometimes it is peaceful, a slow exchange of goods and ideas. Different stone tool traditions mix and blend. Stories and songs are shared around the fire. The gene pools merge. At other times, it is violent. Competition for resources, or simple xenophobia, leads to conflict. There are skirmishes, ambushes, raids on camps. The dinosaur world has its own history of tribal warfare, driven by the same ancient impulses of fear, greed, and loyalty to one's own kind. This is not a utopia. It is a real world, governed by the same harsh biological realities as our own. The intelligent dinosaurs are not angels. They are animals with big brains, grappling with the moral and practical challenges of a complex social existence. As the climate settles into the warm, stable pattern of the Holocene, our current interglacial period, the troodontid dinosaurs are the dominant intelligent species on the planet. They are spread across Africa, Eurasia, and the Americas. Australia, a vast isolated island continent, remains a holdout for a completely different dinosaur fauna, a lost world of relict species. The intelligent dinosaurs have not crossed the deep ocean channel that separates it from Asia. But everywhere else they are the apex thinkers, the manipulators of the environment. They live in sophisticated, semi-permanent settlements, villages of sturdy, domed huts made of wood, bone, and earth. They cultivate plants, a simple form of horticulture, tending patches of edible tubers, fruits, and seed-bearing grasses. They are not full-scale farmers in the sense of ploughing and irrigating vast fields, but they are active managers of their ecosystem, using fire to clear underbrush and encourage the growth of useful plants. They have domesticated one animal. It is a small, social crested hadrosaur, a species that in the wild lives in tight-knit family groups and is easily tamed. These animals are not ridden, they are too small, but they are kept for their eggs, their meat, and their soft insulating down, which is plucked and woven into blankets and clothing. The villages are a hub of activity. Specialization is increasing. There are flint knappers who are masters of their craft, producing hundreds of perfectly symmetrical points in a single day. There are individuals who are experts in the medicinal properties of plants. There are those who are respected storytellers and keepers of the oral history. This history is rich and deep. It tells of the great migrations from the ancestral lands. It tells of the ice. It tells of the time before fire. The mind of the dinosaur, shaped by a lineage completely separate from our own, has produced a culture that is intricate, beautiful, and deeply connected to the natural world. They have a concept of time that is cyclical, not linear. The seasons, the migrations of the animals, the phases of the moon. These are the clocks by which they live. Their art, their stories, their very sense of self are woven into the fabric of the living world around them. They do not see a separation between the natural and the supernatural. The world is simply alive, full of agency, full of spirits that reside in the oldest trees, the deepest pools, the highest mountains. A tyrannosaur is not just an animal. It is a spirit of the hunt, a manifestation of a powerful ancient force. When one is killed, rituals are performed to appease its spirit, to thank it for its life, to ensure the balance of the world is maintained. We are at the threshold of the present day. In our imaginary timeline, the date is a day like today. The Earth is warm and stable. The ice sheets have retreated to the poles. The continents are in their familiar positions. The world is a patchwork of forests, grasslands, deserts, and ice. And the dominant, intelligent species is a dinosaur. Their civilization is not ours. It has no cars, no cities, no industrial factories. They have no written language as we know it, though their pictorial and symbolic record-keeping is highly advanced. They have not split the atom, nor have they walked on the moon. Their path has been different. Their tool use, while sophisticated, is still based on stone, wood, bone, and fiber. They build with natural materials. Their science is not a formal experimental method, but a deep, cumulative, observational knowledge of the natural world. They can predict an eclipse. They know the medicinal properties of 1,000 plants. They understand complex social dynamics of the herbivorous herds. This knowledge is powerful, but they are on a trajectory. The population is slowly growing. The semi-permanent villages are becoming larger, more connected through networks of trade and communication. The manipulation of plants is intensifying, leading to the first true domestication events. The pressure on the large wild animals, the mammoths and the giant hadrosaurs, is increasing. The first faint whisper of the same challenges that would later define our own relationship with our planet, habitat destruction, overhunting, the slow extinction of the great beasts, is beginning to be felt. The intelligent dinosaurs are, without knowing it, standing at the beginning of their own journey into a more complex and demanding future. They face the same choices all intelligent life must eventually face. How to live in the world without destroying the very systems that sustain it. Their story is, in its essence, our story, played out on a different branch of the tree of life, with scales and feathers instead of fur, with chirps and trills instead of spoken words. Imagine standing on a ridge overlooking a broad, green valley in what we would call East Africa. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of deep orange and mauve. In the valley below, a herd of titanosaurs, the last of their kind, is moving slowly toward a river. Their immense grey bodies are silhouetted against the shimmering water. Their footsteps are a low, rhythmic thudding that vibrates up through the rock of the ridge. On the other side of the river, the lights of a village are beginning to flicker into life. 100 small cooking fires, each one a tiny, defiant point of light against the gathering dusk. A thin plume of smoke, smelling of wood and roasting tubers, rises into the still evening air. You can hear the sound of the village. It is a complex, musical sound, the high, trilling calls of the young playing, the lower, more rhythmic exchanges of the adults finishing the day's work. The chanting of a storytelling circle, the elder's voice a deep, resonant pulse that carries the weight of generations. A troop of feathered figures is walking along the riverbank, returning from a day of fishing. They carry spears and woven baskets. Their movements are relaxed, their postures communicating an easy, quiet intimacy. This is not our world. It is a world that exists only in the quiet space of our imagination. But as you stand on that ridge, watching the last light fade, the scene feels real. The air smells of dust and water and a faint, musky scent of the titanosaurs. The sounds of the village are a blanket of comfort in the vast, darkening landscape. You are witnessing the end of a day in a 66-million-year-old civilization. A civilization that began the day an asteroid sailed harmlessly past the Earth. A day that never was for us, but is every day for them. The thread of their history is a continuous line, stretching from the very first dinosaurs in the Triassic, through the golden age of the Jurassic, the vibrant peak of the Cretaceous, the cold trials of the Ice Ages, and into the warm calm of the Holocene. The line has never been cut. The great extinction was a bullet dodged, and this beautiful, terrifying, and utterly alien world is the glorious consequence. As the deep velvet night settles in, the intelligent dinosaurs of the village gather around the central fire. The stars come out, the same stars that shine down on our world, but the constellations that are so familiar to us are strange and nameless here. An elder is speaking. Its voice is a soft, rumbling purr, its hands moving gracefully to illustrate its tale. It is telling the old story, the one that is told to the young at every generation. It tells of a time of darkness and fire, a time when the world almost ended. It tells of a great cold light that passed through the sky, a spirit of destruction that missed its mark. It tells of how the ancestors were spared, how the world was given a second chance. The young listen, their huge luminous eyes reflecting the firelight, their feathers fluffed out against the night chill. They do not know, as they listen, that the story is true. They do not know that their entire world, their very existence, hangs on a cosmic near miss. For them, it is just a story, a comforting myth of origin. They listen, and they are safe, and they slowly drift off to sleep, one by one, carried to the huts and tucked into soft, woven blankets by their parents. The fire burns down to embers. The village is quiet. The only sound is the distant, rumbling calls of the titanosaurs in the darkness, a sound that has been a part of the night since the very beginning of time. And this is where our walk through this imagined world gently pauses for the night. Not an ending, for the story has no end, just a quiet place to rest along the path. The world of the dinosaurs is still turning. The sun will rise again on the ridge, the valley, the village by the river,